We back at it. Oh man, I almost just made that same crappy Kendrick Lamar joke that I did a couple weeks ago because I couldn't think. Who says "we back at it"? Somebody screams "we back at it." It's DJ Drama. Will I've realized now. Of course, DJ Drama featured on Tyler the Creator's 2020 album "Call Me If You Get Lost." You know who's gonna be lost? Will. Kirk Cousins going up against Brian Flores' freshly stocked defense. They went in the offseason and they said, hey, we just lost a lot of, we really didn't lose that much cap space, but in the future, we're going to have a ton of cap space. Let's sign a bunch of dudes. And they got a bunch of good defensive dudes. And Kirk Cousins now, off of a 4 interception, no touchdown game, one of the worst of his life, has to come back to Minnesota, the state where he won one playoff game and had the fan base the most divided that Americans have been since the Civil War, possibly. And he has to come back and try and defeat them. The question is not, will the Vikings win? The question is, how badly will the Vikings win? And will we see Michael Penix Jr. in this game?
Oh, I was salivating on that question today, and I listened to Raheem Morris's press conference because I wanted to see him and hear him answer that question because I knew he would get asked that question yesterday. He seemed about as convicted as you could possibly be that Kirk Cousins is going to be his quarterback next week. He wasn't aghast at the question, but he definitely answered it with conviction that I think he said something along the lines of, this guy has got us here. He's been our leader all year. We're not going to throw him under the bus for this game. So it would be hilarious if Kirk Cousins came back to Minnesota and was backing up a rookie in the Kirk Bowl. Like, what a letdown that would be. But I have a question for you. Do you think Kirk Cousins and his familiarity with Brian Flores from last season will help him in this game on Sunday?
I'm going to go with no, because every QB that talks about training camp, be it Kirk last year or Sam this year or JJ this year, like, they all say, thank God we are done with that defense. That was terrible. They come at you. They're all over the place, blah, blah, blah. And also, Kirk saw that defense with, like, Daniil Hunter playing linebacker instead of pass rusher or instead of end. He saw it with, I'm trying to think of who the starting defensive backs were last season. It was guys, not
Unspeakable names.
Yeah, not like Shaq Griffin. He didn't see Blake Cashman flying around. He saw like Ivan Pace and Jordan Hicks or whoever the other guy was last year. So I think the upgrades on the field matter a lot. And also, even if he is a little bit more familiar with the scheme, that doesn't mean he can execute against it. Like, that's where it's a difficult scheme, and that's where the X's and O's stop mattering, and it does come down to how many dudes do you have, and the Vikings have dudes.
Yep. Yeah, and who has had success against the Vikings defense this year? It's been Ben Johnson and the Lions. It's been Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford and the Rams. It's been Caleb Williams and Kyler Murray. So the things that I see sort of as continuity between those groups are either mobile quarterbacks or established, successful play callers with veteran quarterbacks. I would say that the Falcons have one of those. They have Kirk Cousins. He's a veteran quarterback. The last few weeks from the Atlanta offense have not shown me that Zach Robinson is a established play caller. They've looked bad. They have 36 points in 3 weeks. And they had a couple games earlier in the season when they scored 10 and 17, and they are not a high-powered offense despite the weapons. And I think, it's probably something where you can look at the weakness of that offensive line. And I don't trust their offensive line to move a tractor if all 5 of them got behind and pushed a John Deere lawnmower. There's not consistency from that line. They have fantastic running backs, but I'm not convinced in their ability to run the football. And so, and then also you just couple that with a first-year play caller. It's not clean. There's too many of these games where they're turning the ball over and not scoring points, and obviously the players have to make the plays, but I don't worry too much about, this offense under this coordinator and a older Kirk Cousins beating up this defense. I think Kirk is smart enough. He's one of the smarter quarterbacks in the league between the ears, but his athletic ability has never been his strength in terms of escaping pressure, which the Vikings like to do. And you put pressure in his face, it's just going to be harder for him. Even if he can make the throws, it's just going to be harder for him to consistently do that all day. So I don't worry too much about their ability to really exploit this defense.
Yeah, I do want to point out, as someone who watched Kirk Cousins for 6 years, he does, when he gets rolling, I mean, he rolls, doesn't he? I mean, when he's feeling it, his accuracy is next level. People are still, and I kind of did it earlier as a joke during like a bit where I was being like, oh, Sam Darnold is better in every way than Kirk Cousins. Like, everyone says like Kirk Cousins has like this noodle arm. That's false. Maybe it's just his accuracy was so good on the deep balls that like I never noticed like a lack of cannon. But like I feel like I remember him getting to midfield and getting it to the end zone, which is like, yeah, look, Josh Allen can throw it from his knees from the 20 or whatever. Cool. That's, if he's on his knees, he's down by contact, so that doesn't matter. Like in my head, I'm like, yeah, I mean, if Kirk Cousins, if I see him reel up and launch one, I'm probably like pooping my pants because like he usually doesn't let those fly unless he knows he's got something, and he doesn't miss a lot. I mean, he just doesn't. He's pinpoint accurate, and I know it does seem like the Achilles injury, unfortunately, has affected his playing ability, if you will. But I mean, he's had some games. The Philly game comes to mind, which I know it was early in the season, but he was kind of dealing in the Philly game. He's had a couple games where it's like, hey, Cousins is going. I want to take a moment to, mandatory. Hey guys, I live near Cincinnati. Jesse Bates is very good at football. My buddies were disappointed, to say the least, when Jesse Bates left in free agency a year or two ago. So Jesse Bates scares the crap out of me, like especially with Sam. He hasn't thrown a pick in a while, and so this kind of has the feeling of a game where like Sam hasn't thrown a pick in 3 games. Sam is kind of in his bag right now. Not extreme. My camera's spazzing out. Let me try turning it off for a second. Sam hasn't thrown a pick in a while. Sam, 3 games, he's kind of in his bag. And Cousins is coming off of like really bad games, so I'm kind of afraid like there's going to be a snap back in the opposite direction. And Jesse Bates is going to get 2 or 3 picks, and Cousins is going to throw for 450 yards and just absolutely touch them like they did the Bucs defense. Because Jesse Bates is really good. Jesse Bates, I think, picked off Pat Mahomes in their meeting this season. It just seems like he makes big plays when you try to stretch the ball down the field. And Kevin O'Connell loves to have his QBs, push the ball down the field. So Jesse Bates strikes fear in my heart. On their offensive side of the ball, I mean, come on, man. I respect to the Atlanta Falcons defense. They are a solid bunch. This week is all about, at least for me, it's all about Cousins versus the defense, right? And so Kyle Pitts, Josh Metellus is going to have his hands full. It seemed like they kind of put Metellus on the Troy McBride treatment, like the Troy McBride duty last week. So he's going to have his hands full trying to handle Kyle Pitts, who is, again, showing flashes of why he was like a top, 10, whatever he was, pick, but also like he isn't consistent enough to warrant that pick. So like, he's kind of, is he a bust? I don't know. That might be strong, but I don't know. I'm excited to see Kirk come home. I think it's safe to call this home. I know he played in Washington, but it feels like he will forever be known more as a Viking than he will, a redacted, a Falcon or wherever he's going to land next. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm curious if you want to get into game balls and score predictions, or if you want to keep breaking this down a little longer.
Yeah, I think just one brief thing. This Falcons defense does not strike fear in too many people. I know you kind of glossed over it. I think you probably justifiably glossed over it because apart from Jesse Bates and a couple nice players on the defensive front, they're not very good. And these guys are they're still NFL players. They still get paid. All that. They have a defensive minded head coach. So similar to how Arizona turned it around about 6 weeks ago, Atlanta could start turning it around this week. But they have struggled all season in really almost everything defensively. They don't turn the ball over enough to make up for those shortcomings. Just sort of in general, they're giving up too much consistently, and they're not the most formidable crew. Like you said, they've got some nice players, but it's not as strong as I think a lot of people would have hoped for a team that was kind of slated to win the NFC South, which has been absolute disappointment of a division.
Yeah, I have to point out, by the way, that last week we did the same song and dance of like, yeah, Arizona, they got that one safety and everything else is kind of like, hit and miss, blah, blah, blah. And then Arizona just absolutely dominated the Vikings offense for half an hour, 40 minutes, something like that. So, anything is possible. Arizona, like you said, that they did stop turning it around a little bit ago. What was it, 2 weeks ago? The Falcons got beat, they got boat raced by Seattle. It's been a while.
They got boat raced by Denver recently, and they also got destroyed by Seattle earlier in the season. They've had some bad lopsided losses. Just sort of weird for a team that's supposed to be pretty good. And they've had some sort of Jags level losses, which is not great.
I also, and this is me just kind of, I love looking back at preseason predictions and analysis, especially from a fantasy side of things, and seeing who was a dud. I was real big on Zamir White, the Raiders running back, because he finished last year averaging 22 points a game. So I was like, okay, he's an obvious draftable guy. And like Drake London, he's been a solid wide receiver. Don't get me wrong. From fantasy wise, I'm sure his owners are happy with him, but just overall, Drake London is not now considered a top 10 guy in the league. He's just kind of another guy, in that receiving core. So, it seems like the Falcons, everyone kept making the comparison. Oh no. Everyone kept making the comparison that, the Falcons were like the 2017 Vikings or the 2018 Vikings where they had all the pieces in place. They just needed the QB. And whereas the 2017-18 Vikings, I think, that was kind of true. I do, because the defense did come back and give a top 5 performance, and they did still have Diggs and Thielen and Rudolph and Cook. The Falcons, I think, were a little bit further away than they maybe thought. And I think the fans have rightfully so pointed out, hey, we knew we had these holes on the team, and we drafted a quarterback at 8 instead of trading down and getting more picks and building a team around Cousins, which is the catch-22. Because if you don't take Penix, then what's the plan after Cousins? And if you do take Penix, you could have helped Cousins. And so that's us Vikings fans are very familiar with that because that was a March, April conversation every year. So I'll dive in real quick. Actually, I went first last week. I'll let you go first for this one.
30-20 Vikings.
10 points.
Vikings offense is going to get back on track. They're going to score lots of points. They're going to continue that momentum avalanche. I think, whether they'll admit it or not, I think this team is going to be amped for this game. It's about as close to a division game as you can get when you get your former quarterback in. And I think the guys loved Kirk Cousins. I don't think there's any ill will towards him. But I think there's going to be a sense of wanting to prove it to the guy who left for more money. Let's just call it what it is. And you are succeeding at a very high level without him. And I think they're going to want to show it to him. Like I said, I don't trust the Falcons' offense. I think 20 points might even be generous. I don't trust their play caller. I don't trust their scheme yet. I don't trust their continuity yet. I think this defense is going to give them plenty of headache. And like I said, 30-20. Game ball, I mean, Kirko, he's on a interception heater. And who has the most interceptions in team history? I think maybe not most interceptions in team history. I think it's second in team history. Harrison Smith's going to get an interception. He's going to get a game ball. That savvy vet, he's played against Kirk Cousins at about 100 training camps. There's going to be a big pick by 22 in this game, and he'll get a game ball. So Vikings 30, Falcons 20, 11-2.
I love that. I hope you are correct. I would like to remind everyone that I'm down 22 points in the pick'em. So I'm going to do something here that seems dishonest. I think the Vikings are going to win this game. I legitimately think they're going to win this game by like a possession. The Vikings seem like their days of beating teams by 2-3 possessions are behind them. So I think they're going to win by a possession. For the purposes of this game, I'm picking Cousins to beat the Vikings 31-28. In a F you shouldn't, he's going to Jake Browning, you should have never effing cut me, but he's going to say frickin' instead of what Jake Browning said. So I'm going with the L, 31-28. The Vikings, let's say it's a heartbreaker. Let's say John Palcoromo misses one, and then Will Reichard comes back, and we can do away with John Palcoromo, and he can go to Baltimore to save their season potentially. My game ball, now that I can get back on track and who I actually think is going to win this game. We do this thing where it's like, hey, if it's a revenge game, you pick the guy who it's the revenge game for. And we don't really have that this week on the offensive side of the ball, like where it's like, oh yeah, this guy played for the Falcons and now he wants to give a big FU to the Falcons or anything. So I'm going with Sam. Like in the sense of, one, he's the QB, easy game ball. Two, it just kind of seems like this is, you're going on a double date with your ex for some reason. And so you better bring a bombshell. You better bring a doctor who is a model on the side and works with children in her free time and, makes 6 figures, if not 7. You know what I mean? Like, you need something to show that you got it going on. And hopefully you show up to the date and your ex looks like crap and, he's, whatever, like it's a slob and blah, 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 whatever. So I'm hoping Cousins plays bad. Sam plays well. My camo is not having it, dude. Sam plays bad. Oh, Sam plays well. Cousins plays bad. And Vikings fans will be insufferable. I might not open Twitter for a week because, look, man, I get Sam Coke doesn't play here. I get he used to play here. It's okay for guys to have played somewhere and been okay and then moved on in their careers. But, for some reason, Vikings fans are just, vicious. We're just no, he's the worst quarterback of all time. And I hate him. And I hate his kids. And I hate his wife. And blah, blah, blah. And it's come on, man. Let's just... Yeah, I hope he plays bad because he's playing the Vikings. I wish him success after that, I guess. I hope the Bucs win that division just for, my own selfish reasons because I like the Bucs. But so, yeah, I'll go with old Sammy Hammy. Oh, I don't know what I just did. I turned my camo back on, and that wasn't supposed to happen. I'm going to really quickly do my final thoughts because my baby is upset in the background, so I'm going to grab her and get her to chill out for a second. My final thoughts, and this is an old final thought since this posts on Thursday, Adam Thielen is still kind of him. Just catching game go-ahead touchdowns in Carolina against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then following that up with a one-handed, incredible, arguably catch of the year for someone over 30. Just an incredible one-handed catch in overtime to set the Panthers up in field goal range, and then as Will said earlier on the show, or earlier this week on the show, until Chuba Hubbard decided he wanted to Dalvin Cook it in overtime. So I thought that was a fitting reference to the Bengals game. Was that it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, in 2021, I believe, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yes, the beginning of the end of Mike Zimmer happened that day.
which his butt was down in his defense. I mean, I'm not trying to, sour grapes that, but his butt was down. Chuba Hubbard's butt was nowhere near down. But yeah, man, props to Adam Thielen, and a little bit props to me because I do remember floating out in the offseason whenever Addison got his DUI. I was like, do we consider trading him for like a second round pick and Adam Thielen? And then we just get Thielen back. And so, I don't know. It seems like he can still kind of go, even though he's a little bit older. So, props to Thielen and, his family and everything like that. Will, I'll let you take us home.
Two quick things. Adam Thielen's only played 5 games this year with injury, so maybe he's not, as valuable as
he
we
pulled
maybe,
his hammy.
bloating his ego up to be at his young ripe years of 30 whatever he is now, but I guess he is 34 years old. Yeah, he's getting up there. And the other thing, just apologies to Bobby Bryant, Ed Schrockman, and Joey Browner for thinking that you guys were below Harrison Smith on the interception leaderboard. If you've never heard of those guys, no disrespect, because I had forgotten about all of them. I thought it was just Paul Krause and then Harrison Smith on the Vikings interception leaderboard. So my apologies. Harrison Smith is never going to catch Paul Krause.
How far off is
regard? 53 for Krause, 36 for Harry. So Harry's gonna have to play about 8 more years.
No, he's just gonna have a 17 pick season next year, and we'll be fine. He'll catch him.
My final thoughts, just for awareness, something Jordan and I were talking about before the show. It's a big week for Jordan Addison, not just because, the Vikings have another football game, but because he has a trial in Los Angeles for that DUI from earlier this summer, if you remember that. And I think everything's still on the table, whether it's I think 6 months of jail time is possible for a first-time offender. And there's all these different things that could happen. It could just be bail, whatever it might be. The NFL has not made any statement, obviously, because the ruling is yet to come down, but we don't know what's going to happen with Jordan Addison. He might be suspended. He might not be suspended until 2025. I don't think there's any clarity on what will happen with him, but just sort of turning on the alarms a little bit for what's probably going to be coming into your Twitter feeds starting tomorrow for a trial that may not finish tomorrow. Sometimes these things take longer. We're not lawyers here. We're not going to pretend to be, but there is a big decision that will be made there. So if Jordan Addison ends up in jail, that could possibly affect this season or next. So big day, December 3rd. You'll probably be listening to this after that trial has happened, but could be some scary results for Vikings fans. Might be without Free 3. Free 3 is going to take on a whole new meaning, by the way, if he does end up in jail in Los Angeles. But
I do just want to point out that when you said, tomorrow's an important day for Jordan Addison, I immediately, for some reason, and maybe it's just because he's not a tall wide receiver, I just started thinking of Jordan Addison, putting on an oversized suit with a goofy tie. It looks like he's wearing his dad's suit, because I just imagine him going into court and then being like, what do you do for a living? And he's like, I'm a professional football player. I don't know. It tickled me to think of Jordan Addison as a child.
Yeah. And last thing on this, I think Addison, he owned up to it well back in the summer, willing to accept his punishment and all that. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll have some more clarity on what that's going to be at the end of this week. My assumption is that he will play the rest of this season. What happens in trial or not, I think he will probably end up playing the rest of this season. NFL suspension probably won't be handed down immediately. Unless, of course, he gets put in prison on Tuesday. Then we could be looking at something different. Again, look up Load the Box Legal for all your court needs and Jordan Addison news. We're here to talk about football. We'll be back next week to talk about more football. a little Kirk Bowl 2024 recap, State of the Union, and then a preview for, yes, they play the Bears again the following week. So lots to talk about. The season's just getting started. This is when the real season starts. We'll talk again next week. Skol, y'all.